Hey, Chrissy here. I am a landscape architect and the owner of Kismet Design. I am a very process-driven designer, and I love sharing what I do and how I do it with anyone who's interested. Reaching your true potential and achieving your own personal goals will not happen by chance. You have to set your intentions, make a plan, and do the work. Thank you for joining me to nerd out on design. Don't forget to subscribe and to share too. Let's create something great together. So today is going to be amazing. I have with me Rebecca West. She is an interior designer, an author, and a business coach. Her interior design business, Seriously Happy Homes, was such an amazing success that it led her to start Seriously Happy Coaching and Consulting, where she helps other design business owners find their own success and happiness in running their businesses. She, like many designers, did not have the most direct path to finding her way into the industry, and we will touch on that a bit, but please visit her website to read more about her and especially to connect with her. You can find her at seriouslyhappy.com. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for joining me today. I'm super excited to jump into our topic of nailing your niche. But before we do, I'd love for you to give a quick introduction to how you got into the industry and how you are transitioning your business to coaching.
Oh, that's a lot to unpack. I'm glad to be here. 15 years ago, I had been teaching ballroom dance. I loved my career, but then, like many of us, I found myself getting divorced. And as part of that, I had quit my career. So I found myself career and marriage free with kind of nothing to do, nothing to lose. And at the time, I was blessed because I got to keep the house I lived in with my husband, but I've also felt really trapped by that because I was looking at the wall colors we'd chosen together, the furniture we'd shared together, and it really held me trapped in that place of the failed marriage and of the divorce. And I just one day I woke up and I was like, I cannot keep living like this. I've got to change something. I wasn't going to move, but something had to give. So I completely transformed my home on a newly divorced woman's budget. And it was mostly paint and a lot of new to me furniture from Craigslist and Facebook and everything. And it was so profoundly transformative in how I saw myself and my life and my future. Like I could see it at all thanks to this change. And so that led me to thinking, other people shouldn't. I'd always thought of design as for rich people. It was a luxury thing, it was a nice to have. When I went through that, I realized that there is so much power in how we set up our spaces and what they say to us and what they do for us. And I wanted to give other people access to that beyond it being a nice to have a pretty home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's how I started.
And now you're doing the same thing for people in their businesses.
Exactly. Because I started from a non-interior design place, my niche has always been a little bit out of the ordinary. When I got started, people were like, I don't know how you're going to do this. You're not targeting the rich people. It's not going to work. Well, 15 years, I proved that it would work and I followed my heart. And so now I try to give other people the tools and courage they need to follow their heart as they're building their interior design business too.
And I love that so much. And I think it's really inspiring, and it's, obviously exciting. And I think having the opportunity for other business owners that might be feeling unsure of themselves and, what are the next steps. And I think especially for newbies, it's nice to have someone as a resource to help them not have to learn all of the mistakes the hard way.
Yeah, and to sort through a lot of well meant advice that might be really not a good fit for you and your path. And when we're new, we're so nervous and we just want to do everything right. And we just want people to feel like we fit in with our colleagues. And there's so much imposter syndrome. But you don't want to have that take you off of the path that will lead you to having your version of a happy, sustainable business. Other people can't tell you what's going to make you happy, only you can.
Well, that's a perfect lead in to our topic today of nailing your niche. to just jump right in, what are some of the key factors into both defining and to finding your niche as a designer?
Yes. So I think people overcomplicate finding their niche. They think they have to develop this crazy specific avatar of a buyer, and then they do all this work, and then they never do anything with that work. But the thing is that finding your niche, it's by doing it, it is such a powerful tool because it makes marketing and sales easier, like so much easier. It's unbelievable. But only if you approach it from a really practical mindset, not like, I help soccer moms. Okay, well, soccer moms is kind of specific, but it's really not. Some soccer moms might want to be a designer and they really want a collaborative design experience. And some soccer moms might be like, I'm super busy. I'm looking for somebody who will take this off my plate and just do it for me. So when I think about finding our niche, we've got to start from that intersection of what your, as a designer's skills and strengths, talents, passions, and experience are, and where that intersects with the needs of the clients you're going to serve. And if you can identify that intersection, then, like I said, you can put it to use. Because you can focus your marketing and get known for something as an expert rather than as a generalist. And the generalist is the big problem that we have in our industries as designers.
Do you think that the experience of trying to define your ideal client and defining your niche really, do you feel like one comes before the other, or do you think it's really an integral process of kind of finding and defining both at the same time?
I think they are one and the same thing. And I don't tend to start with a client profile so much as well, let me just dive right into it. So one of the tools that I use in my Nail Your Niche program is called the 5 distinguishers. And this is low hanging fruit. Like, this is not complicated stuff. So luxury level, this is a really straightforward question. You know, as an interior designer, are you sourcing $10,000 sofas or $2,000 sofas? Those are different clients, right? Geography. I can't tell you how many times I go to a designer's website and I can't tell where they work. You might choose a micro territory like we did at Seriously Happy Homes. We only worked within 9 miles of our office. And you can nowadays choose a worldwide territory without even having to travel, thanks to Zoom and other online platforms. So, where do you work? And that's not just so that your clients are informed and nobody's wasting each other's time, but it comes back to becoming an expert. By having such a hyper local focus in our company, we got really good at the kinds of homes that are within 9 miles of our office, which are 3,000 square feet and under, bungalows, and then modern builds. And we became experts in that. So all of these things, luxury level, geography, your service structure, are you just offering consults? Or are you doing like A to Z white glove execution? There is a market for both of those things and everything in between. And then, just because I don't want to forget any of them, your aesthetic point of view, very important. And your personality. It's like the cherry on top of distinguishing yourself from your colleagues. Just those 5 things can help you connect with the right client because you can use them in your marketing and not feel so stretched.
And personality is a huge one because both for your clients and for yourself, like hiring a designer is a really very personal decision. And you have to have a confidence that you not only connect with that person, but they understand what your goals and your vision are. And, it's like working with a colleague or even like a spouse. Like, you have to have a good personal connection. Like, it sounds weird to compare the two, but it's so true. Like, most design processes last a long time. You're kind of stuck with that person for a while. So it's important it's the right person.
It's so true. And I've done a lot of the personality type studying. And, as designers, we definitely have to learn to be chameleons. We need to be able to speak the language of any client that's going to come our way. But let's say you're a bottom line communicator. You're going to get along better with and communicate more easily with bottom line communicators. Versus if you're a storyteller, a relationship builder, those are lovely people. I'm not one of them. I'm going to skip the small talk and get right down to business. But relationship building and small talk people would find that offensive. They're like, I need to get to know you first. And so showcasing even these distinctions about your personality in your website copy and how you phrase things and how much copy there is, all of that stuff, that signals to your clients that they have found their designer. And it's not one ingredient, it's the cocktail, it's the recipe of those 5 distinguishers. And there's other techniques you can use too, but like those are the easy ones. If you just nail those, you'll be far ahead of where you're at right now.
Well, I think having that framework of those 5 things helps you kind of dive in and really kind of define and, the elevator pitch, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, because really your niche really boils down to a little sandwich. What do you do? Who do you do it for? And what do they get? That's it. But there's so much in those 3 little things, because what it's doing is it's saying what you don't do, who you don't work with, and what you're not going to deliver. I think you actually touched on this in one of your recent podcast episodes, talking about contracts and defining what's in and out of scope. That's both on a per contract basis, but also on a business basis. I don't do outlet plans in my electrical plans. They are lighting plans. I made that decision for lots of reasons that work for me and my clients.
I like that. So as far as timing, so in a designer's career, is there a point where it's either too early or too late to define that niche? And what about as a business evolves, revisiting that to make sure that it still fits, that you haven't kind of grown out of it or beyond it and maybe need to do some tweaks?
I love that question. So it is never too early to start. And in fact, I think this work is more important for a new designer than it is for an established designer. Because one of the hardest things to do when you're a new designer is get clients, right? You have no portfolio, you have no trust built up yet. How are you supposed to land clients? So by defining an expertise niche, you can get better at it faster, and you can get known for something more quickly. And it doesn't really matter what you pick, as long as the promise that you're making to people, you can deliver on, right? That's the only thing that matters. And it's okay to play in the early days. I started out thinking I was going to help people who were getting divorced, because that was my story. Well, come to find out, and I should have known this when I got started, you don't have a lot of money when you're getting divorced. It wasn't a good target from some of the practical sides of choosing my niche. So then I played with the idea of life transitions in general. And then ultimately the whole thing morphed to just becoming about being practical and efficient. And that's really what we became known for, was we need to get you in and out of this design process so that you can move on with your life. That's what happened for us. So start with a niche, actually market it, like give it a chance to work. Because how many people post twice on Instagram and go, oh, it didn't work? Well, yeah, because it's a marathon, not a sprint. So, try it for at least 6 months. And if you're not getting any traction, change it up. I rebranded, like fully rebranded 3 times in 15 years. Every time I did it, I was so nervous. Like, oh my gosh, they're going to think I'm flaky. I'm going to lose clients. No, nobody even noticed. And it just leveled up my company, because with each rebrand, what was happening was I was getting clearer on what I do, who I do it for, and what they're going to get as a result. And so it wasn't a rebrand, it was a narrowing and a focusing and a leveling up of my expertise.
I'm curious about those rebrandings. Were all of them kind of more like front loaded in the early part of your career, or were they kind of staggered, or kind of what that timeline looked like?
They ended up being aligned with milestones that I didn't see coming. When I started my company, I said I'm never going to have employees. I came to find out that was a lie. I didn't know. So I started out as Rivoli Redesign, which was named after my grandmother, and it was focused entirely on color consultations and redesign because I knew, I mean, I didn't have any training in this. So because of my growing up in the military, moving a ton, and just my own talent, I knew I could deliver on that promise. I was terrified, super unconfident. And so that's part of why I named my company after my grandmother, because I was really relying on her strength and what I knew of her to give me the courage to move forward. Then the first milestone that really happened was when I felt ready to really lead my company. And I had hired a couple of assistants on the admin side. And I went, you know what? I do know what I'm doing. Oh my gosh, maybe I can put my name on this. And so I rebranded to Rebecca West Interiors and really refocused my niche and my marketing. And then, surprising again to myself, I hired designers. And then I realized that the company was bigger than me now. And it was about my designers, not just me. And so that's when we rebranded to Seriously Happy Homes, because it was about the bigger picture of who we were helping, not about me as a designer. And that felt amazing.
And then it doesn't feel awkward when you're sending somebody else to a client meeting. They're like, wait, you're not Rebecca?
Exactly. And this is something we all, dance around when we're trying to choose the name for our company. Do we name it after ourselves? Do we do something more generic? And I'm here to tell you that you can change your mind later. So don't worry too much. And the way to do it, by the way, is you have a company name. Like my actual company name is West Unlimited LLC, but nobody knows that. And then I've got my doing business as, or my DBAs, and you can change those. You can have as many of those as you want, at least here in Washington State. So it's really easy. It's like $10 a year to add one. I don't know. I don't know what the number is, but it's cheap.
Easy enough to, not have it be a huge, revamping, especially, once you get into the legal part of it, that can be a little daunting.
Yeah. Because you do need to make sure your bank accounts are going to say the same thing that the checks people are writing you.
Right.
Because people still write checks in our industry. I find that crazy.
The only reason I carry a checkbook is daycare. So I don't know why anyone else would. So what have you found? Because you work with a lot of other interior designers, and I don't know how many other people out of the industry, but just design in general you work with. But what do you find is the biggest mistake that people make in defining their niche or communicating their niche?
All right, and I'll answer both of those. So yes, I work with landscape designers, in your industry. Artists are also part of my world. So it's really these creative service industries. We all struggle with the same things. So the biggest challenge, I think, when people about defining their niche, and I would say every business coach would agree with me on this, they just go too broad, right? They're so afraid of scaring away a client or leaving a client on the table, leaving money on the table. They just go broader and broader and broader. I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do all these million things. And the problem with that is, unless you have an unlimited resource budget of money and or time, you can't market all the things and get known for it. It's impossible. And I like to keep it really, bring it back to like really easy to understand level. If you're going to be the world's best stapler producer and the world's best coffee producer, those aren't the same marketing messages. So you have to double up on your marketing budget and your energy with every single broadening that you do of your niche. So the number one mistake is people go too broad, and they do it because they're afraid that their market won't be big enough, they won't get enough clients. But the opposite is true. And you really just have to go on faith about that until you start feeling the results of it. And then when it comes to communicating their niche, the biggest problem is people just don't do it. Like, people post once on Facebook, and then they're so anxious about self-promotion or coming across as salesy or spammy that they never tell people what they do. And that, in some ways, it's very mean to your clients, because if they need what you do, but they don't know that you do what they do, you have taken away the opportunity for them to hire you.
I like that reframing of that. Instead of having it be salesy, it's a gift of letting people know that you're out there, that you do what they're looking for.
Yeah. in our company, and I do the same way with coaching, I am zero pressure sales. I listen to what somebody says they want from me as a coach or as a designer. I decide if I can deliver that. And then in my proposal to them, I just use their words and say, okay, you wanted this. Here it is. Here's the price tag. Do you still want it? That is my sales process.
Well, and I think that for especially newer business owners, the sales and the money piece is the hardest, most awkward and uncomfortable part of it. And so I feel like having it be more of like more upfront and just blanket statement and not asking for money, instead of just saying, here's the value that I can provide. You decide if it's worth it to you or not.
Yes, which is why when we're thinking about our niche, that sandwich part, the end, we got, what do I do? Who do I do it for? But then, and what do they get after we're done working together? That part's really important. And I think that designers of all kinds would be really well served by thinking about that service result. What are they going to get by working with you? Because if you can define the service result, then you can define the value of that service result. And once you understand the value of that service result, you won't feel nearly as scared talking about the value of it. But especially not a lot of interior designers, we create these service menus that are like, I can help you with curtains and wallpaper and kitchen remodels and picking a toilet and handling your contractor. It's like a dry cleaning list, not a here's what you'll get. And that is really hard to get your head around in terms of value, whether you're the designer or the client. And so then it does feel scary and sticky to talk about money, because we are just talking about dollars and hours, not value.
And I really like how you put that, talking about value instead of trading basically time for money.
Exactly. Yep.
And then that makes you more profitable as well.
It certainly can, because, and especially if you're using a flat fee method, which I promote and always use myself, as you get better and more expert at your niche and your job, you'll become more efficient, and you can charge the same amount because you're delivering the same results, but it might not take you as long on your side to do that work because you have become an expert at it. And so then your profitability raises without having to change a thing.
What do you tell business owners that don't want to narrow themselves too much and are being more broad because they don't want to only do one specific thing and want to have a greater amount of variety in their work?
Yeah. It is one of the reasons a lot of us become designers and stay in the industry, because we love the variety. It keeps us sparkly in our brains. So it goes back to that earlier question of how much time and money do you have to market whatever you're talking about? There are no rules, and I'm not going to tell somebody to limit themselves. The thing about your niche, though, is, okay, I'll take a really silly example. Let's say you decided to become known as the world's best designer for dog owners, and you just know everything about whether it's gardens, plants you can pee on that won't kill, or interior fabrics that they can sit on that it won't kill, right? You're going to get renowned within the dog walking communities and all of the Chihuahua meetups and whatever. Well, they might have friends who are cat owners, and they're going to be talking about how awesome you were. And that cat owner is going to be like, well, I wonder if they might be able to help me with my cat problem. When people hear that you're great at your job, they're not going to stop and not ask you to help them just because there's something slightly off about your niche and their situation. They're going to reach out and say, can you please help me too? And that's where you're at an intersection where you go, do I want to add this to my services, or am I not an expert in this and I should refer it to my cat expert colleague, right? Because the other thing about choosing a niche too is not only does it allow you to get more expert, but it also makes you a great colleague, because you can refer non-fit clients out and they'll get a great experience. Your colleagues are supported. They'll see you as a collaborative partner in the industry and return that favor. And it leaves your calendar free for the projects you want to do. So to come back to your question, This isn't about limiting your creativity. It doesn't mean you have to say no to anything. It's really just about how are you going to market your services so people understand who you are and you stand out from your colleagues who are all doing it very generically. And so it's hard for people to pick their provider.
Right. And especially in an area like Seattle, for instance, that has a lot of options for people to seek out a designer. It's, I think, even more important in saturated markets to define who you are and what you do. And if you get someone that, like I get a lot of the time, people will email me and they'd like, I started to fill out your questionnaire, but you don't work in my area, but I'd really like to work with you. Would you consider this? And so depending on the project, maybe I might consider working with them, even though they're out of my geographic area or not really exactly what I normally do. And then it gives you that choice to make.
Exactly. And you can always signal that on your website or in your intake form, have a project that doesn't fit what I've described. Shoot me a note. Let's talk about it. You can signal that you're open to having that conversation, but your marketing is focused, making it easier for people to find and choose you.
And then you keep a consistent voice as well, which just looks overall more professional to everybody.
Exactly. But I do think you brought up a very good point. The more crowded your marketplace is with colleagues, the more important it is to stake a claim in a specific territory, niche. If you're in a more rural territory where it's you for 100 miles, you might have to kind of be a generalist, even if you want to niche in order to really fill out your calendar, unless you're willing to go a little bit more broadly with your design territory, things like that too.
Right. What do you think some of the biggest benefits are to having, I mean, we've touched on a couple, but to having a well-designed and well-communicated niche?
I mean, for me, it really comes down to the ease that it brings to marketing and sales. The marketing is easier because you have something to talk about, right? If I am, well, like for me with Seriously Happy Homes, it came down to that we were practical, efficient, and friendly. And so all of our posts supported that. Let's talk about practical surfaces, quartz, not marble for your kitchen counters, for example. Let's talk about efficiency. We will have your project done in 4 meetings. That's a huge selling point. And then friendliness, that just was, the fonts we chose, the colors. Yeah. So it makes marketing easier, which with our limited time and resources is essential. It makes it more effective. And then it makes the sales easier because once you have somebody actually knock on your virtual door, they're already primed to be your best client. You don't have to waste time figuring out who this person is and what they want if they've been magnetically drawn to you because of the marketing you were doing in the first place.
You feel like, so obviously it helps kind of filter the clients that come to you. Do you think that it made hiring the right employees easier as well?
Oh, again, such a good question. Yes, it definitely did. And I would say before I had my niche as defined, I made some some hiring mistakes, particularly around efficiency, right? Our whole shtick was we're going to get you in and out of the design process. Well, some of the designers that I hired were incredibly talented, wonderful people, but they were more of that storyteller, relationship style salesperson. Nothing wrong with that, but it didn't fit our structure and our business model. So it really helped me get much clearer on what personality fit would let somebody really thrive in our business model and what wouldn't, so that I didn't make hiring mistakes after that.
When you are communicating to your clients what your niche is, and you start to realize like maybe that's not the right fit for them, how does that conversation usually go?
Well, once we got really clear on our website and our intake form what we were about, that didn't happen very often. So that's point number one.
But that
But
involves clients doing their homework and really reading, which I find there's a small percentage that just they hear you as a referral or something. They're like, oh, okay, I'll just contact you without doing that homework.
my gosh, client and contractor referrals are frequently my worst clients for that exact reason. And so this comes back to your onboarding process and what you ask of your clients to make sure that they are giving you what you need. So for example, we ask for people to put a idea book together of 10 rooms that represent what they're trying to build, and we will not schedule the consult until they have sent us that. So that's really about discipline, your own business discipline, and going, I can't deliver my best service if they're not being a great client, and then helping them know how to be a great client. But it definitely came up. And for us, it was usually around either somebody wanting us to buy and install everything for them, or somebody wanting us to do project management on site during execution. Our design service was design only. It was a fully executable design plan that they could go then do on their own or with a contractor. So, and usually it would be a referral, like, oh, we love you. You sound amazing. Oh, you don't do this. And in the early days, I bent over backwards, turning myself into a pretzel going, oh, sure, I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. And that drained my energy. It stretched me thin. It kept me from becoming an expert in what I wanted to be doing. Once I developed that business discipline I'm talking about, it was so easy. I would say, your project sounds amazing, and we don't offer that service, but we have so many wonderful colleagues, and we encourage you to go work with one of them. And that was it.
You, for new designers, I think it's oftentimes really scary to say no, because you feel like you have to say yes to everything. And you and I have both been in that position where you say yes to things you know you shouldn't because you feel like you need to get the work. What is your best advice to someone that's in that position and really struggling with trying to build up that confidence and conviction to be able to say no to clients?
Well, I'd start by saying that when we're new, it's good to say yes to as many things as you can, because that's your experiment phase. That's where you're finding out what you like, right? Because we all come into this industry with a idea of what it's going to be, and then we find out what it is. And those are frequently very different things. So experimenting and saying yes early on is not just good for, paying the bills, but it's also good for figuring out what you like to do and what you thrive at. So don't be afraid of that early hustle, but as quickly as you can, as soon as you start seeing red flags and things you don't like, start saying no to them. That is the hard phase. That is the phase that takes a lot of faith and courage, because you won't have practiced it yet. But if you don't do that, you will forever be stuck in a business that does not support you the way it could. So you have to, at first, say yes, experiment, hustle, have fun, go crazy. Then, as soon as you start identifying those red flags that drive you insane, revamp your intake form, revamp your process, put things in place that'll help you not have to say no, because the website and the intake form are doing it for you. And then do it, say no. And then you'll find how good it feels. It never gets not scary, right? The thing about being an entrepreneur is you never trust the pipeline fully. It really doesn't matter how successful you were last year. We know that doesn't guarantee we'll be successful next year.
It could change at the drop of a hat.
Yeah. And things, they're both in our control and outside of our control. But we have one life to live. If we don't say no to things, we're going to end up exhausted and burnt out. And we just have to develop that courage and discipline for ourselves. And it's not just for us. It's also so that we can deliver the very best service for our clients, because we become experts, and that's who they want to hire. They want to hire an expert, not a generalist.
Well, and I think for a client, knowing that what they're hiring you for is what you are super energetic and passionate about is going to be a better service and a better process and experience for them too, instead of just having it be very transactional.
And I think that that's a real key takeaway. You're not just saying no on your behalf, you're saying no on the client's behalf. The only 2-star Yelp review I ever got was on a project I should have said no to. And I was like, I can do this. How hard can it be? It was a color palette that was outside of my comfort zone. And the results were that the client said that the room was beautiful, but it wasn't the room she wanted. Because as much of a chameleon as I am, I still have my design instincts. I still have my aesthetic point of view. And I should have, for her sake, said, I'm not the right designer for you. I learned my lesson the hard way. And it got me real good at saying no. So if you want to get really good at saying no, have a disaster, because it'll really, it'll check you.
The painful mistakes are the best learning tools.
Oh, I wish it wasn't true.
So you mentioned intake questions. Are there a couple examples of some intake questions that really help kind of weed people out that aren't a good fit for you?
You know, I actually think my weeding out questions happen a bit more during the actual consult. So and I'll touch on both, but during the consult, for example, I like to ask, have you ever worked with a designer before? Because the answers to that can really uncover some red flags like, yes, I have. Okay, why aren't you hiring that designer again? Well, it didn't go well. There's a lot to unpack there. Did it not go well because of the designer? Did it not go well because of the client? Was it extenuating circumstances? So my red flag questions tend to come up during the consult. In the intake form, I want to make sure that I'm signaling what they're getting themselves involved in. So again, they're not wasting my time and I'm not wasting theirs. So for example, I signal prices. It's that, in the part where you're always saying, what rooms are we designing? What spaces are we designing? I added typically, so for kitchen remodel, typically starts at 80,000 and goes up in the Seattle area for the project, not for the design fee. And that way they weren't coming to me saying, yeah, I want to hire you and I have $5,000 for my kitchen makeover. We can do amazing things with $5,000, but you're not remodeling your kitchen. So the intake form for me is about signaling and making sure that when they come to the table, they're well informed and we're on the same page. And then the consult is when I want that nuance. I want the body language. I want their voice inflection that tells me what I'm really hearing between the lines about red flags and yellow flags.
I love that. I think that's it. It's a good distinction between the two and kind of how to read, whether or not only they're a good fit for you, but that you're a good fit for them.
Yeah. A consult's a two-way interview, in my opinion. We didn't charge for them. That was a choice we made, remembering that we had a micro territory. So driving 9 miles was no big deal. But because of that, I felt very free to demand certain homework. And I felt very free to say no to the client when they weren't a good fit.
And I think for selecting clients that you really want a lot of input from, having the demand for the homework is a really nice indicator of, is this client invested in this process? Do they know what they want? Do they have a clear vision that I can execute on? Or do they just want someone to come in and be like, here, do this?
Yeah. And again, there's nothing wrong with any of those business models. It goes right back to niche. There are plenty of clients who are going, I don't want to come in with a vision. I want to hire a visionary who's going to blow my mind. I'm not that designer. I am the kind of designer who's like, I know you've got great ideas in your head. My job is to help them draw those ideas out of you and then give you a recipe so that you can end up with what you were dreaming about. Neither one's wrong. Figure out your niche and then figure out the homework you need from your clients, which might be very different from me and my clients.
So you had mentioned earlier being able to refer other colleagues, and for the all of my colleagues in the landscape design industry, there's a large group of us that regularly refer each other. And it's really, I think, a super useful tool. It's super helpful. And it makes me feel like even if I can't help someone, I can still provide some value by being able to give them a really good connection for someone that can. Do you find that communicating your niche very solidly to your colleagues is equally as important as communicating it to your clients?
100%, absolute of equal importance. Because I mean, if another designer doesn't understand what you do and who you do it for, how the heck are your clients going to understand it, right? So that's a pretty low bar. But yeah, I get really frustrated because I'm so specific about my niche. I get a lot of client requests going, "Oh, do you know a designer who can X, Y, or Z?" I'm a business coach to interior designers, and I still go to all these websites and go, "Yeah, I can't actually tell you what their service structure is, what you'll get after you work with them, or what the experience will feel like." Because when people say that to me, it's usually because they want full execution on top of everything I already offer. So I'm looking at these people's websites, and I'm trying to find somebody who really prides themselves on efficiency, only offers practical design solutions, and is very approachable and friendly. I can usually tell personality, but that's about it. And so I can't confidently say, yeah, this person does what I do and offers white glove execution. And I wish I could. And so this is really my mission as a business coach. I want every single one of us to get so stinking clear on what we do and who we do it for that we can say, yeah, these 4 designers right where you live do exactly what you need. And I'm so excited to hear how it goes when you work with them.
Wonderful. I love that. So as we wrap up, I've got a couple last questions for you. The first one is, who is inspiring you right now? It could be a book, it could be another designer that you follow on Instagram. Just what's the first thing that comes to mind, that, or even just like a topic that makes you really excited?
Yeah, my brain went so many places just now. There is a group that I follow on Instagram, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's all about maximalism. And it's a human group just made of humans who are just doing the craziest, cuckooest things to their house. And I love it, because one of the problems nowadays is that everybody is feeling like they have to follow the design trends because everybody wants to fit in. And unfortunately, and this happened, you look across interior design websites, the cover picture all looks the same. It's all white and minimalist and just undistinguishable from the others. So I go on this maximalist Instagram page, and it is anything but. It is rainbows and Star Wars themes and entire rooms dedicated to gem display. Our homes, my book is called Happy Starts at Home. Our homes are meant to be our nest. They should feel as comfortable as our best clothes. They should make us feel as powerful as our dressiest clothes. And that's the site I go to when I'm like, my eyes need a rest from all the beige sameness. And I love it.
All the monotonous, like you see the same materials, the same colors over and over again.
Yep.
I feel the same in the design and the landscape design industry. You see a lot of the same materials and aesthetic over and over. And I love that, where it's very unique. You might not ever design someone that wants a Star Wars themed kitchen, but it's out there and it's entertaining and inspiring. And it's like, oh, someone's doing these things. That's interesting.
Exactly. Yeah.
Last question is a loaded question. Do you have any questions for me?
Oh my goodness, I didn't see that one coming either. When you help people and you're thinking about niches, what advice do you give them? And how do you see the importance of niching?
I really think it's about, and you said this over and over again in our conversation, but I think it's about being able to really enjoy what you do. And I feel like the projects that I work on that fit with not only my knowledge base, but what I'm really excited about, I enjoy doing more. It's not a daunting process to be like, oh, I've got to sit down and sketch on that project. When it's something that I just either don't feel as confident in, or I'm just not excited about because it's, the same old, just kind of cookie cutter, like that's not as much fun. I still do some of that. There's a couple builders that I do builder work for, which is not exciting. And I do some, like short plat work and things like that, that are basically just a big math equation. It's not fun and exciting, but I do some of those things still, very selectively. But I think that having a little bit of that helps me appreciate the clients that are like super creative and want to incorporate some artwork in their landscape and want to, use the plant material and the color palettes and that I really enjoy. I feel like it makes me appreciate those more, but I think I deliver a better product when it's a project I'm excited about.
It just makes sense, right? Our talent fires up when we're excited about what we're working on.
And I think that, to circle back to your point about personality, I think that the personality of the client makes a huge difference. And because you do end up spending a lot of time with them. And I feel like I deliver a better product when I really understand that client. If it's someone that isn't willing to have very candid conversations, let me in, talk about, what, they need this space because they've got an absorbent amount of grandchildren and dogs that come over, and like some of those things where it really, you see what their lifestyle is, what they're looking for, how simple or how complex things need to be, by having them really give you a lot of information. On the other hand, too much information can be a bit much.
Right. And that's, again, going back to niching, even thinking about the word collaborative. I have a lot of designers who are like, oh, I love collaborative design. I'm like, okay, now let's talk about what that means to you, right? Because you can set up a system. We actually offered a collab service where they were literally co-designing right next to us through the whole process. That drives most designers crazy. So whenever we use these words, then stopping and going, and what do I mean by that? Let's define what we're saying, because we all use the same words, but we don't have the same meaning. And that's the other challenge on your website. Get specific, get clear. If you can copy and paste any of the copy on your website to a colleague's website and nobody would notice, it's too generic.
I love that. That's a really good kind of definer of like what makes it more unique to you and more specific.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much. This has been great. Before I let you go, you have a gift for the listeners. Do you mind sharing what that is and where to find it?
I would be delighted. So I have a PDF all about nailing your niche. And if you go to seriouslyhappy.com/nail your niche, then you'll get it. And you'll also get my newsletter, which shares business tips and things like that. If you do the homework, you can send that to me for free feedback on your niche. And then you can also get access to my 5-day live Nail Your Niche challenge, where I walk you through picking your niche. And I do this because when I work with somebody as a business coach, the more defined their niche is when we start, the more success we have together. So I want everybody nailing their niche, whether or not we work together. And that's why it is a free challenge.
Wonderful. And I will put a link in the show notes to that, along with your website, so that people can find you. And then I know that most of the listeners are not interior designers. And I think it's a really big distinction that doesn't really matter. Your information is really industry agnostic about anyone creative, especially anyone in the design industry. I think it's really valuable information and advice, and really applicable to the landscape design industry as well.
Yeah, the only thing you'll find is that I do use a lot of interior design analogies, but I'm quick on my feet. And if anybody has specific questions for me, I'll be able to find an answer within the industry, no problem.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and this has been great.
It's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
To wrap up, I want to thank you for your time. I hope the ideas discussed today have left you feeling excited and energized. As I build both my business and my life, I value the support and feedback you provide. I would love for you to reach out to me to let me know what you think, give me ideas, or just to connect. Please don't forget to subscribe and also share with a friend. Until next time, go create something wonderful.